I've been talking a lot for months about how Trump's plans are absolutely devastating for farmers across this country. The things that he wants to do are absolutely terrible for our agricultural industry, and that impacts anybody who grows our food and all of us that eat our food. It is a bad, bad scene. And the way we are watching ICE and the Department of Homeland Security escalate their attempts to round up migrant workers, often on the job at farms. They are picking them up at farms while they are picking your food, right? Folks who are growing and harvesting your food are being snatched off the job site. We know that these folks, they're not violent criminals. They're not gang members. These are decent, hardworking folks who feed America. The situation for America's farmers and our agricultural industry, it's just going to get worse. Now, I've also been covering the protests at the ICE facility on Macadam Avenue in Portland, Oregon. And those protests have really ramped up in response to the abduction of a well-known and well-respected member of the winery community in Newberg, Oregon. Now, Oregon has a thriving wine industry here. We grow a lot of grapes and we employ a lot of immigrant workers here. The contribution of Oregon's wine industry is incredibly important to Oregon's economy. And yet the ICE raids throughout the month of June have been focusing on Oregon's wineries. And in particular, the case of one gentleman named Moises Sautello has really captured the headlines, so much so that The Guardian did a piece on it. Moises was abducted from Newberg, Oregon, and transferred to the ICE detention center in Portland, and I believe he has now been transferred to Tacoma. The Tacoma facility is a really bad scene, y'all. I encourage you to research what conditions are like there and the human rights concerns about that location. So let me just take a little bit here and share with you from the Guardian piece about Moises and what's happening to the workers in Oregon wineries. Now, this story has also been covered in multiple local and state Oregon papers, as well as in Decanter magazine, which is like the wine industry news. Right? These are not hardened criminals. These are not violent gang members. These are decent, hardworking people who have contributed meaningfully to the economy. They pay their taxes. They live in your neighborhoods. They go to your churches. They are members of your community, and they are being terrorized by ICE for no reason. Well, the reason is so that this regime can enhance their authoritarian plans and carry out an ethnic cleansing, and so that the private companies that are getting billions of our taxpayer dollars in government contracts to go snatch immigrants and detain them indefinitely in horrific conditions can just get richer and richer and richer, right? This is a grift so that those for-profit companies can make a shit ton of money terrorizing immigrants around this country and doing incredible harm to American society. Moises Sautello has lived in the wine country of Oregon in the Willamette Valley for decades. He thought he was getting up and going to work as normal, but according to The Guardian, that morning was not business as usual for him. A car tailed Moises as soon as he left his driveway. According to an account from his coworker, trucks surrounded him just outside of St. Michael's Episcopal Church, where he was detained by federal immigration agents. By the end of the day, he was in an ICE detention facility. According to Alondra Sotelo Garcia, Moises' daughter, Moises was put in chains, his shoelaces were taken off, his belt was taken off, he didn't have his wedding ring, his watch was taken away, everything was taken from him. For ICE and the MAGA Republicans who support the snatching of immigrants, these are just nameless, faceless brown people, right? This is an ethnic cleansing. They don't see any of the immigrants whose lives they are destroying as individual humans. But in communities all around the country, these are our neighbors. We know these folks. We work with them. We have relationships with them. It's very difficult to other and dehumanize people when you care about them, when they're your friends, when they're your fellow congregants at church. Right, there's that story out of a very Republican district in Missouri where a woman named Carol, who is an immigrant, was snatched from ICE, but she was beloved by the community. She was a waitress in the local diner and everybody knew her. And they all voted for Trump, but they were like, oh shit, we didn't mean Carol. When you said you were going to snatch immigrants, we didn't mean our friends that are immigrants. We didn't mean the people that we love and have friendships with and value and care for. No, we were just thinking of nameless, faceless scapegoats that we can blame for all of us suffering in America because we don't want to look at the reality that it's billionaires that are fucking us and not immigrants who are struggling to earn a living, pay their rent, and pay their taxes. We didn't mean the people that we know. It's very similar to how when you are trying to educate people and get them to deconstruct from their white supremacy or their homophobia, that the best way to do that is actually by forming friendships with those people, by developing, cultivating relationships, it's very difficult for people to continue to hold on to their hateful, bigoted ideals if they can no longer other the group that they have been desiring to scapegoat, right? If they start to see the humanity, they start to have relationships with people from those groups that they are scapegoating. If it starts to impact them personally, it starts to hurt their heart, right? Then they will, that is the most successful way in getting those people to realize the horror of their position, the terrible things that they've been upholding and promoting and wanting to do. And so the more we are seeing immigrants being snatched up, decent, hardworking, valued members of the community snatched up from all over America, I wonder how much that's going to change people's minds. And it's terrible that it has to play out this way. It's terrible that immigrants have to suffer because white people are racist, and white people are so desirous of supporting their own oppression, so desirous in doing the work for the billionaires that they don't want to see who's actually oppressing them. They don't want to look at the reality of why their quality of life is so reduced and why the American dream feels so inaccessible to them. They want to turn a blind eye because they think maybe they could be a billionaire someday, right? So instead, they want to scapegoat all brown people in the US. They want to scapegoat all our immigrants in the US. It's harder and harder and harder for them to do that when they have relationships with people, when people they care about are being snatched, right? They're gonna say, I didn't mean Carol, who's my waitress at the diner. I didn't mean Moises. I didn't mean him. Suddenly that starts that unraveling process for these folks. So Moises' detention really sent shockwaves through the wine community in Oregon, which is largely conservative, right? Newberg, Oregon, y'all, Newberg, Oregon is it's a beautiful little town. My husband actually went to grad school there. Beautiful little town. It is full of MAGA chuddies. It is absolutely in the grip of MAGA. I don't have time to get into it in this video, but just like Google Newberg, Oregon, right wing, or just Google Newberg, Oregon controversy, and there will be lots of news stories. People in this community, they didn't think it was going to happen to Moises, right? Moises Sautello is a fixture of the local industry. In 2020, he was awarded with the Vineyard Excellence Award from the Oregon Wine Board, and in 2024, he established his own business maintaining vineyards. Anthony Van Nice, owner of a local vineyard where Moises Sautello had worked, said that he considers Sautello a friend and that he was disappointed and disgusted by the arrest and the government's treatment of immigrants. "My concern is about my friends and neighbors who are getting rounded up by ICE," Van Nice told The Guardian. "We built this country on the backs of immigrant labor. To just round them up like criminals and throw them into these overcrowded detention centers, to send them packing without telling their family or their attorneys where they are or where they're going, it's inhumane. It's a human rights issue." Outrage over Moises' arrest and the targeting of immigrant farm workers across Oregon has resulted in a real uptick in the protests at the McAdam detention facility in Portland. Please understand that the Trump regime goes back and forth like the chaotic escalation of their tactics and then pulling them back and then reinstituting them. That is meant to keep immigrants' heads spinning. It's meant to make it difficult for immigration attorneys and immigrants' rights groups to protect immigrants. So right after Moises' arrest, we heard from the Trump regime that they were going to stop targeting farm workers. They had intentionally implemented a plan to focus on farm workers. And then, of course, these big agribusinesses freaked out. And so they abruptly reversed course and said, no, don't target farm workers. And so our farm workers breathed a sigh of relief, said they can show up to work now. No, within a few days, the Trump regime switched course yet again. It's that back and forth and back and forth. You cannot feel grounded. You are constantly jostled, and there is no normalization of any behavior, right? They will change the plans at the drop of a hat, and you are left with your head spinning, and that's what they're doing. So now they are back to targeting immigrant farm workers again. Y'all, 42% of America's agricultural workers are undocumented. At the time I'm filming this, Moises is still in detention, and so are tens of thousands of other farm workers from around the country. Yamhill County Commissioner said, "When a large part of the workforce is afraid to come to work or of being detained, everything is affected. We are seeing farm workers who just won't show up to work." Now, Moises is a valued member of his community. There is a strong network of people supporting him. His GoFundMe has already raised more than $100,000, but he's still not free. And if this big budget bill passes and the Trump regime gets their way, it's going to be worse and worse for America's immigrants. It's going to be worse and worse for our agricultural industry. Is this what we want for America? Is this making us great again?